Thank you, Father. My name's Eric Swenson. I'm with Dollinger and Sons Construction Company. I've been in the construction business for about 30 some years. So been involved in a lot of exciting projects over the years. My history goes back to actually working in the field. So I started as a laborer in the field and slowly working my way up the ladder. Became a carpenter, became a superintendent, moved into the office when I was in my early 30s. Started to do supervisory type roles. So over at least the last 6 years, I'm vice president of the commercial construction division. So I run all the commercial projects for Dollinger through our office. That's a little bit of my history. I've got a lot of church experience, and we're going to walk you through that. We got a great presentation here. We'll try not to drag it out too long. We've got some pictures that kind of show you Donglingers and some of the projects we've done. We've also got some pictures of your existing church, and which shows you the condition of the rafters and the roof. And we actually are going to lay out a nice little game plan for how we're going to take it on for you. So I've got Jim Milligan here with me. He's our project manager. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, good morning. As Eric mentioned, I'll be the project manager. I'll be the one working on a day-to-day basis with our field staff. I've got about 15 years of experience in the construction industry. I've done a lot of good projects with Dollinger. Looking forward to doing another one. We're really excited about this project. It's pretty interesting. It's not the kind of thing I think anybody does every single day. So it should be a really interesting one. I'm excited to be here.
So a little bit of backdrop, a little bit of how we got involved in the project. Back in 2018, June 24th, 2018, Andale, Kansas, at St. Joe Church in Andale, Kansas, had a lightning strike their steeple. Caught the roof on fire, and it just basically burnt all the way through their roof. So the priest over there, I actually grew up and went to Andale High School. He calls me, we're dialoguing, and we come up with a game plan on how we're going to fix it. So that project has a lot of the same attributes that your project has. So the only thing a little bit different on that one is we didn't have to tear off all of the roof trusses and replace them like we do over here at your church, because they weren't failing. Some of them did receive a lot of extensive fire damage, but and they had to be removed and replaced. But for the most part, it was protect the plaster, rip off the roof, put all new wood joists in, and put the new decking on, and put all new shingles on, while all trying to maintain the integrity of the church down below, which is the challenge on jobs like this. So we'll walk you a little bit through. We're not sophisticated, so I'll have to give a little nod to Father every time I want to turn the screen. But Dollinger Construction, we were founded in 1898, so we're on our 4th generation with the company. I actually have my son out here in the audience, so he's joining us on this journey. But we have 230 employees. We are based in Wichita. We were actually founded in Claflin, Kansas. We're a 100% employee-owned company. The 3rd generation has basically sold it to the 4th generation and all of our employees, so great benefit for all of us. One of the things that we love to do is we love to get involved with owners right off the bat. So pre-construction management, construction management, general contractor, it's kind of what we specialize in. So we actually our company is uniquely suited for a job that you guys are doing here. We're made up of 6 different divisions that give us a lot of strength for projects like this. So I'm the vice president of the commercial building division. My counterparts run our heavy highway, so we do a lot of heavy highway work up around Wichita, all of Kellogg. If you've been through Wichita over the last 15 years, we've done all that work. We're actually working on the interchange up at I-135 North and 235, doing that big interchange job over there. That's a 3-year job. So heavy highway, civil, underground utilities. We do a lot of underground wastewater treatment plants, that type of work. We have our own crane division that has the largest crane we have is about a 230-ton crane. We will have some of our cranes down here on your job taking the roof off of it. And we recently started a facility service division, so we go around the country teaming up with organizations to help them with their service. So after the construction's done, if they need help maintaining their projects, we get involved in that. So just a little bit of similar projects, just so you get a feel for what we've done in the church realm. But we just finished up this past summer with St. Rose of Lima Church. This is the church right up here in this corner. So beautiful church in a country setting out by Cheney, Kansas. Sits about 230 people. So beautiful church. The one in the upper left, that's actually Andale, St. Joe Church in Andale when it was redone after the fire. We were also involved in another damaged project from fire, and that was St. Joe Oast out by Mount Vernon. But a couple other churches we've done, Holy Spirit, St. James Catholic Church and St. George, Greek Orthodox Church in Wichita. That's just beautiful, big dome church, a beautiful church. Those divisions, we do self-perform a lot of work. So those 230, about 200 of those employees are craftsmen. And that's what really makes us uniquely suited for a job like this. So our self-performing capacities, we do our own rough carpentry, hardware, underground utilities. We place our own concrete. About 6 years ago, we started doing our own steel erection. And you'll see our steel erectors out here on your roof, putting the new roof trusses on. Demolition, dewatering, earthwork, you can kind of see. But self-performing all this work gives us that large workforce of skilled craftsmen that allow us to do these really fun, complicated projects like you're getting ready to embark on. Next slide. We want to do a little bit of a project overview. Jim and I will just kind of bounce the mic back and forth, but we're going to look at what we want to do is got a series of pictures. So what we want to do is for you guys that can't get up there into the church, into the attic and see the damage, we want to be able to show you kind of what's happening up there. So you'll see the existing damage. We're going to show kind of a little bit of a game plan on how we're going to, what the new design looks like. We're not 100% complete with the design. I'm going to say we're probably about 80% done. Right now we're in the stage of budgeting out the project. Last week we came down with a large lift and we walked a bunch of subcontractors through the project and showed them. We're expecting to get bids back from them next week. We'll assemble all those bids together and submit an overall cost of what this project's going to cost to Father sometime probably the week after next. And then we'll kind of show you the repairs that have to go happen and then the timeline it's going to take us to do it in. So here we go. You want to take some of them or?
Yeah, sure. So this is a picture inside from the side of the church, and this one of the next few we wanted to show you some of the existing damage to the plaster ceiling. Here, kind of the top left, you can see where the ceiling's starting to crack. Go to the next slide. Here you can see some water damage where the plaster's starting to fail there. And then here, some of it's actually completely failed and started to fall apart from the ceiling above. So as part of our work, this will be one of the last phases. We'll come through and repair the plastic ceiling anywhere there's issues on it.
So what's really challenging about your job here is you've got this beautiful arch church with all this painting, decorative painting on it. And all that stuff is tied back to the existing trusses. So we've got to find a way to support that roof. And so the game plan is if you picture this at the beginning of the church, we're going to come in and we're going to build a layer of scaffolding all the way across the church. You got a basement down there too. So we're going to take these loads from the plaster. We're going to transfer them down through the scaffolding. We're going to transfer it through the first floor down to the basement of that church. We got to get all those loads down to the very furthest point in the basement. We've got to hold this up here because we got to cut all those support members that are tied back to the trusses and to be able to take them off. And then once the new roof is back on, we got to tie it all back together. So this is one of the most challenging aspects of this. And you got to remember, we got to do all this because plaster can't get wet. So we're going to have to become really good at watching the weather and predicting our windows that we can do this stuff in. Because what we learned from Andale, this plaster can hold up to a little bit of water. When the fire department came in and sprayed all the water, it held up fairly well. We just don't want it to take on a bunch of rainwater and then have it start failing too. So that is what makes this job particularly tricky.
So the access into the attic space above the plaster ceiling is through the bell tower. This is a picture inside the bell tower. what we wanted to show you here is that ladder is actually the ladder to climb into the bell tower. So one of the things that we'll do before we're done is we'll replace that ladder with something a little bit safer. As you can tell, it's a couple feet short of the deck, so you kind of have to stick your head through there and then pull yourself through the deck to get to the bell tower.
So all those wood ladders will go to structural steel. They're going to be up to date, meet current code requirements, but yeah.
And then this is actually just to the right of that picture we were just looking at. At the bottom here, you can see the curved arch lintel, and you actually have to crawl underneath that to get to the attic. But if you look up above here, you can tell where that whole brick face is starting to fail. There's a series of cracks all the way through. Some of the brick faces are starting to fall apart. So part of the work we'll do is add sandwich beams on either side of this wall to support it, and then we'll also repair all the cracks in the brick. All right, now we're taking pictures of actually inside of the attic, and basically, if you guys can look up, you can see all the steel trusses. What's happening in the attic of the church is these are all wood trusses, all very, very old wood trusses, and they're starting to fail. They've been under loads for over 100 years now. They're starting to twist and buckle, and some of them are getting pretty close to actually falling. They're not all fastened. All the pieces aren't fastened together fully, and originally that was fine because they were being held down through gravity, but now as other pieces are starting to move, they're starting to slip off from each other. If you look at this picture here, this is one of the main trusses, and it's actually warping. It's kind of incredible how much this wood has warped without breaking. I mean, there's 6, 7, 8, 9 inches of warp.
Yeah, this particular one here, I just point out just a couple things here. I'm going to walk over here to kind of show you a little bit better, but that support right there, that actually holds up the plaster ceiling. You can see at one time those nails were into that truss. It's rolled so much that it's actually broken loose of the plaster ceiling. These loads come down, and that framing right there, that's the plaster ceiling that's down below. So these tie rods are at the bottom of this truss cord, and you can see that thing's rolled so much. There's actually about 2 foot, this should be dead center, but up to the top, it's 2 foot out of plane so far. So it could go at any time, that particular truss there. There's 2 of them up there that are extremely bad, and we'll show you. This is the second one off the bell tower, on the north side of the bell tower. When you get up to the transepts, there's another one you'll see in a little bit later picture that's really rolled bad, and you can see how much it's slid over from the existing valley. But it's rolled so much that sometime over the years they've actually put some 2x lumber between the purlin that holds the roof joist. That's that top little member you see coming across the screen. They've actually had to shim that up 3.5 inches because there must have been a dip in the roof at one point in time.
And speaking of dips in the roof and shimming, this picture shows a good view of how they have over time had to shim. If you look at this purlin here, you can see there's a shim under each one that they've had to come back and add at some point in the past to try to put the load back where it's supposed to be. Here's just another picture showing up inside the roof structure. I think this one's looking north.
This is looking down the transepts of the church.
Yeah, this just kind of shows how it's constructed. Here's where the plaster ceiling is. Here's your insulation. Then there's kind of a walkway through here. Speaking of walkways, here's the walkway to get through the attic from truss to truss. There's no handrails. It's kind of just a thin, maybe a foot wide path. Doesn't meet current standards for safety. If somebody would fall off this, they'd be landing on top of the plaster ceiling and falling right through that. So part of the work we'll do as we're replacing these trusses is build more of a safer walkway through here. This is back in the bell tower. So as you look up, this is actually what that ladder climbs up to, is a structure here. So part of the work we'll do is we'll build more of a safer platform here that doesn't have gaps in it.
So the bell is actually right below that level there. There's actually 3 more levels, I think, above that one. That must have been some of the original framing that I can think of when masons were laying it back in the day. They'd probably planked that thing solid and just kept going right up your bell tower. But there's really no reason to be up in that level of it unless you're just doing some periodic inspections, because your bells are right below it. Yeah, that's a great picture looking down the transepts of the church. And so that flashing metal that you see right here, that is the valley where those 2 roofs come together. And you can see that truss has rolled so much that it's actually slid out from underneath the valley gutter. I don't know when that would have happened, but there's 2 engineered reports done for this project. One was back in 2016, where a lot of this stuff was identified. And there was another one in December, I believe, of 2020, and that's when they finally condemned the church after probably getting back up there and seeing some more of this extensive damage. But that one's really concerning because on the transepts, you basically got 4 of these trusses that come together in the very center of the church, and that is one of them that's starting to roll. I mean, that thing could go probably at any time if the loads were right. Go ahead.
Just another view showing how over time things have moved. You can actually see daylight through here in the attic space itself. So part of our work will be to seal those gaps back up. Here's just another view of how members are starting to move. These pieces should be sitting on top of each other, on top of the one at the bottom. Instead, as things started to roll and move, it's almost quickly slid off.
Yeah, so the 3 beam sandwich ones, this is the top of the truss right here, coming through here. That is those purlins that come horizontally and should be sitting onto this truss. There's a joist every 24 inches that sit on top of that purlin right here. So you can see your whole roof load for one bay, most of the bays there are 16 foot on center, is not even being carried by anything at this point in time. So we're going to a few pictures here going through around the perimeter.
Yeah. So as we remove the roof and we replace the trusses, the outside here at the top, the eave hanging over, will replace all that as well. If you walk around and look up, you can start seeing cracks in it and where pieces have started to separate. So as we go through, we'll replace all of this with new materials.
So the original engineers back in 2016 did a study on how true and plumb the walls were, and they found out that from that corner to the inside corner at the transepts, there's 3 inches of bow in that masonry wall. So part of what we're going to be doing is trying to pull those walls back to plumb when we set the new trusses on top of it. So what that will involve is we'll actually drill a hole through the outside of the building. We'll drop a vertical beam down with cables on both sides, and we'll just start tightening those cables up, trying to pull that building back vertical because it's starting to spring out a little bit. We think that's probably that plaster ceiling. The weight of that plaster starting to relax. If you're used to seeing domed plaster ceiling, they put a lot more arch on it. St. Pat's is built really flat. We think that's starting to spring down a little bit, causing that additional force on the exterior of the wall, starting to spring it out. So part of the work that'll happen.
Here's showing a view of the roof. That's actually the cross right there. You can see where the existing roof is starting to fail. You can get some water in here. Also at the base of the cross, it's starting to fail as well, letting water into the building. So part of what we'll do is fix all that and make sure everything's sealed up. And here's a view of a few of the plans that have been put together so far. The top right here is that new walkway we mentioned. over the top left, that arch is the entrance into the attic space. That's that sandwich beam I talked about before. Here's probably the best picture. It's just an overview of the trusses. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 trusses will eventually be replaced, probably one at a time. As Eric mentioned, the weather is a big concern, leaving the roof open any more than we have to. And then this is a view of one of the trusses. Next is our staging plan. Number one consideration is from keeping everybody safe. We'll put up a fence that'll block off our construction area, so there's no concern of anybody wandering into a spot where they couldn't be. As Eric mentioned, we'll have a couple different cranes set up at different points to get the work completed.
Yeah, we think the existing, I think, door to the Adoration Chapel, I believe, is on the south side, right? Is it, Father? And so you can see our construction fence. We're gonna end up coming up, tying back, allow you guys still to have access to the Adoration Chapel. But those 2 big cranes will be picking the loads off. What we found out when we did Andale, it's quicker. The big challenge we have for us is timing. I mean, we're gonna have to look at the window and the forecast, and if we see a time when we have 6 or 7 days where it looks like it's great weather, we got to go. So what we'll end up doing is cutting that roof up in large sections and using the cranes to just pick them and pull them off as quickly as we can. Back to that original framing plan, we're going to probably do this in about 6 phases is what I envision in my mind. So we'll go through and put a temporary support in on one side of the truss, transfer that load down to the basement, and then we'll take out a truss, take out all that roof framing, put the new steel truss in, all the framing back in, put the ice and water shield on, and just keep stepping down. The biggest one, and we're really gonna have to open that transept up at one time. There's really no way to phase it like you can control the other areas. We're just gonna have to find a really nice window and just take the whole thing off at the same time, because everything comes back to the center of that transept. Is where those loads are carried back from. So, but yeah, that's how we'll kind of leapfrogging through. I think the next one might be the schedule. Jim, you can walk them through if you want that schedule. There's a lot to see here, kind of hard to see, but.
Yeah, so I mean, the important parts are hopefully getting started here this month with being able to release materials. The first step will be to get all the material here. Based on our current lead times, we think if we can get the steel trusses ordered this month, we should be able to have them by late April. So we would really be starting the construction sometime in April. And then, as Eric mentioned, doing a phase 1, doing one phase at a time, only opening enough that we can get closed back up before the rain arrives. And so as long as everything goes smoothly, we would be done around next October. So about a 4 to 5 month construction process, and then once all material shows up.
Yeah, we can skip some of those. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah, right now everybody's been hearing the news. Material lead times are hard. A lot of what we got here is lumber, and we have steel. Steel is going to be our longest lead time, like Jim mentioned. If we can get the steel bought out this month and get a vendor hired to start fabricating, they got to fabricate it, and then it should show up around April. We're estimating right around early April. So that schedule is conservative. That has us 5.5 months going out to October. We don't know how this thing's going to go. Once we start progressing, if we see a larger window where we have a little more time weather-wise, we may try to go 2 bays at a time, and as we pick up speed and hopefully decrease on that long lead time. So we just wanted to let you guys see a conservative approach into October, but hopefully it's a lot quicker than that. So, and that's it. If anybody has any questions, or we can at least talk a little bit about the construction and help you guys understand that a little bit better before we jump into maybe some of the finance side of it. You want to just use this one? Yeah, there is some crack. I think, what was it, 2008, I think, Father, when they came in and maybe did some of the replaster painting work, and maybe some of you guys, there is, above some of the stained glass windows, I'm seeing a lot of damage there. I'm seeing some cracks in the plaster. Is that because some of the trusses are settling and some of that plaster's coming down? Is it a little bit of water damage? Some of it seems to be, to me, to be a little more water damage related, more so around some of the arched windows. I think the crack you're talking about is definitely a structural crack. One thing we don't know, when we transfer the load from the existing trusses down to our scaffold, what's that going to do to the plaster ceiling? I fully anticipate we're going to see some additional cracking in there, and we're going to allow some money in our budgets to repair that and repaint the inside of the church and repair that plaster. So, it would affect. As that wall comes out, that plaster is really rigid, and so it's going to crack. So as those walls start springing out, it's going to crack. As we pull the walls back in, we're probably going to see some additional cracks as well that we're going to have to repair. So, yes, yeah. No, I think the floor of the balcony is fine. We'll look at that, but yeah, I think the floor is fine. Yeah. Jim, you can just walk around, and if anybody's else got questions, but.
As far as pulling those walls back in, you mentioned a couple of times you were going to try. You said try.
Yeah.
Is there any concern about that?
It's. What we're trying to do is some engineers came in 2016 and they did a survey and they looked at it. Were those walls completely plumb when they built this thing in 1903? So I don't know how rigid that is. It's rigid. The wall at the bottom is about 2 foot thick, I think, in masonry width. As you get to the top, it's about 16 inches thick. No, I think we can definitely pull it in. So what we'll do is we're going to have a platform scaffold that's just right below the trusses, and we're going to lay cables across. So at every one of the pilasters, at every one of the trusses, we're going to lay a cable down, we're going to penetrate the outside wall, and it's going to have a turnbuckle on it. And we're just going to keep turning it and monitoring it. It's nothing you're going to turn really quick. We're going to tighten a little bit, we're going to go look. We're going to tighten a little bit more, we're going to look to make sure we're not creating any more cracks and stuff. The outside of the church actually looks really good, the masonry. There's very little masonry restoration work that really has to happen. A little bit of arch repair around the windows, but for the most part, you walk around that church. I think the north, that new addition that was put on the northeast side has got a little bit, one of the engineering reports said it was settling a little bit. But other than that, the original 1903 is really pretty sound masonry-wise.
And then one other question, as far as the organ that is still there in the choir loft, how is that being protected?
We're going to protect it with wood, yes. We've already talked about that extensively. Organs are expensive, and so there's some flutes that stick out, pipes. Those need to be removed, and then we're going to build a cardboard structure around the rest of those pipes to protect the organ. Yeah. And we'll have to, there's other stuff in the church, like the Stations of the Cross, we're going to have to protect. There's just a lot of things we need to protect within that church so it doesn't get damaged while we're doing this.
You talked about the tower and the cracks. Is that included the cracks that are on the south wall, on the arch, above the front wall?
Yes.
That
Yes. There's a few cracks there that we're going to come in and tuck point back in. But most of the things the structural engineers are worried about are on the north wall. I don't know originally what that was for, but there's a large flat arch that takes you into the attic space. It's just way too flat for an arch, masonry arch, and it's just slowly sagging back down. So part of ours is when we say sandwich beam, some of you may not know what that is, but it's just going to be a structural member, a large size structural member, probably 18 inches deep, that we're going to put on each side of the masonry wall, and then we're going to drill through that wall. That wall's about 2 foot thick right there. And then there's big bolts that go in between, and we're going to make a structural member out of it and take those loads that are on the arch now and transfer them out to the edges. So.
Is the tower straight?
You know, we have not looked at that. I have not investigated that at all, and that was not brought up in any of the engineering reports at all, so.
Before the tornado, the crack that was up there was small.
Mhm.
After it was bigger.
Yeah, okay.
And they say nothing happened up there, but I swear the tower either was pulled out, brought back, or the roof went up and came down at the same time. But that crack is much larger.
You know, one of the things that we can do, and we have laser equipment where we can shoot a laser beam up and measure that, and we'll have a big enough lifts. We can come up and just check all four corners and make sure it's still plumb all the way to the top. That's a very, very large steeple. Just so you know, we're not doing anything to the roof structure of that up there at the top. So right now, it's all the engineers are saying it's sound. So it's really just everything down below. At the back of the sacristy, there's a low roof right there. We're not doing anything to that portion of the roof either. It looks sound too.
You're working on the louvers.
Yeah, the main sanctuary roof is coming off and being replaced.
How about the louvers on the top?
Yes, yeah. There's on the steeple tower, we will not replace those. The round louvers that come into the transepts, we're going to replace those. Those are a wood louver, and they show a lot of rot on them. So one of the things we want to do is put new steel ones in there. They're 5-foot diameter louvers, but the large ones in the steeple are not being replaced. Yeah.
So the deeps that are in the tower will be adjusted, will be looked at too. So, I mean, when it rains, it comes down on the tower into the pipe area.
We will look at that. That was not brought up in any of the engineering reports, and we can definitely see it. Just so a lot of you understand how a steeple's made. Those louvers are large. They're meant to keep a majority of the water out, but there is water that comes in. So if anybody's been up there, you'll get on the balcony, you'll walk back behind the pipe organ. There's a large ladder that's 20 foot tall. That first landing actually has membrane roof on it. It's actually built as a roof, and it has a drain. Because of those large louvers, to get the bell sound out, it allows water and snow and rain, and it's supposed to land on that roof and drain back out. But we can look at that and make sure.
Most of the water that comes in the pipe area is behind the old pipes,
Okay.
the decorated ones, right behind. That's where a lot of
So that's on the north wall, is it?
west side.
Okay. We'll monitor that when we're down here more time and see if there's something we can do there. If it's coming in through the louvers, maybe that roof membrane that's on that first level just needs to be replaced.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious as to how the stained glass windows will be protected or what will be done there.
We typically put plywood around them to protect them. So when we did Andale Church, that's what we did. We just we put plywood over all those stained glass so you don't damage them. Yeah. I think that's it. Get on to the second part of the presentation. Well, thank you very much. We're excited to be here. It's a very challenging job, but it fits us well. So we've done it before. We're 100% confident we have a great plan.
All right. As Father said, I'm Betty Johnson, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be guiding you all through the fundraising process. And I truly believe I have the funner part of the job than these two guys do. I'd much rather be doing the fundraising and having the fun with that than doing what they're doing, especially when I saw those little spaces and those weird little ladders and those weird little planks that you walk on. Fundraising is where I'm going to stay for sure and certain. So do want to say thank you guys to everybody that participated in the feasibility study. However you did that, it was important, and your input has been utilized already, and we will continue to utilize that input as we go forward through the capital campaign process. So I want to talk just a little bit about the results, and then I also want to talk about kind of a little bit about rolling into that campaign so you kind of have an idea of where we're headed on the funding side, okay? So we do a feasibility study for a variety of reasons. Partially is to find out how aware the audience is about the project. And of course, because of the nature of this project, you all were extremely aware of the project. Many of you weren't so sure on what the results were going to be as far as what Dollinger could come in and do, and I think they did a great job of explaining that. But we kind of wanted to make sure that everybody understood there's a clear need and a purpose for the campaign. And we also wanted to find out how important it is, and as the numbers will show later, it is extremely important. Your church is and should be very important to you, and that came out very clear through the study. We also wanted to find out the strengths of the parish, and we also wanted to find out any concerns that you all had. That helps us as we start talking about messaging. It helps us find out kind of what we need to do, what we should do, and it also helps your parish leadership as they make decisions on programming and activities and the future. So the information that we gathered through this process wasn't just for the campaign. You'll be seeing some of that come back to you later once you're back in your church and some of your future programming is brought back as you go forward. Go ahead. We also wanted to find out who was willing and who should be, could be, might be potential leadership for the campaign. And we have been working on the campaign committee, and we'll announce that here today as well. And the other big thing we were trying to figure out as we put this whole roadmap together for the capital campaign was what kind of financial support is out there. And for me coming in, I wasn't as worried about what the cost of the project was going to be. I know parish leadership is, and I know the diocese is, but mine is more important as to how much money can we raise to that, and then any money we can't raise, then we have to figure out, the parish and the diocese have to figure out how they're going to finance or come up with the remaining dollars. But my work and my study was based on what you all were willing and what you were able to do to finance the campaign. So as we get to my number, it won't be based on exactly what's needed. It's based on what we can raise and be successful going forward so that leadership can continue to plan on the financing. So everybody in the parish had the opportunity to participate, and many of you did. Some of you came in and met with me face-to-face down at the insurance company. Some of you picked up envelopes in the back of the church. Some of you went online. A few of you called me, and we did some by phone as well, and that worked fine. And as you're well aware, it was promoted throughout the various ways that the parish connects with you all as parishioners. All the comments were anonymous and confidential. I am the only one that has seen those results, and I'm the only one that will see the comments and the feedback. Now, I did put them back out into the report, and you'll see some of those in just a few minutes, but they're not attributed to anybody, and they were kind of summarized and concise a little bit. But all the comments, all the feedback I heard are not attributed back to anybody, and as I say, I'm the only one. And I think as I mentioned to some of you, even if you wanted to read my scribbles and notes, they probably still wouldn't make any sense to you because I have a Betty Johnson shorthand I use that doesn't make sense to anybody but me. So I do feel confident on that. So I conducted 80 interviews with 112 parishioners, and as I mentioned, they participated a variety of ways. Everybody had the same questions, but not everybody answered all the questions. Some of you opted out on some of the questions, and that was perfectly okay. So as we go through some of the questions, how informed are you of the project? 74% of the participants were either very well informed or reasonably well informed about what the project is, the why. Some of you weren't as certain as to what the fix was going to be, but we knew we were working on a pretty quick timeline just because of the nature of this particular project. Go ahead, Father. How important, and of course everybody 100% felt that the project was very important, which I will say in all the feasibility studies I've done, I've never had 100%, but I think that shows you about the crisis of this particular project and the need, but it also shows your commitment and your support and your passion for this particular building in particular. Some of the strengths of the parish, the number after, just so I don't think I mentioned that, the number after are the number of people that made that particular comment. As you'll note, some of these people had several strengths, and that was part of it, so the numbers don't always add up like you might think they would. The school was very important. It was the primary strength of your parish, which we all understand the importance of Catholic education. Father Curtis came up second, and no, he didn't pay or bribe me or even buy me a lunch to get him up that high. That was you all's feedback and comment on that. The people were very important, the volunteers. As you kind of look through some of that, you'll see some threads through there. It's all about your parish community, your family community within your parish. It's all about the activities and the parts of the Catholic Church that keeps us all close to it. Just a few more, relatively. Your activities, and that popped up very clear. You all are a very social group. You like to get together. You like to come together and be with each other, which is also very good and very strong. But you'll see that giving back and that being around and that social comes through very clear and has strengths in various ways for yours. Some of the concerns were not too surprising to me. In particular, it's an expensive project, and we'll know more in a couple weeks, it sounds like, exactly how expensive it's going to be. But it's a lot of money, and that was a big concern, I think, especially with the uncertainty of exactly what that number could be, but also some of the unknowns, which I think from what the guys presented, they have a better handle on what some of those are. People were worried. You guys are in a diocese that tithes. And most dioceses don't tithe like the Wichita Diocese is known for, but there is concern that a lot of people in the parish are not doing their fair tithing, and that comes back to that finance piece. Declining membership. As we all know, churches are struggling with membership anyway. COVID has not helped, so that's another one that did not surprise me that it was up there. Raising the dollars, especially during these times, is a very legit, very fair concern, and not a wealthy parish. We've raised a lot of money in a lot of parishes that aren't wealthy either. So that one I understand as a concern, but at the same time, I don't get too worried about that one. You can read some of the others. I'm not going to go through them all. It all kind of centers around fundraising. It concerns around the school and that whole thing about, my gosh, that's a lot of money. And it is. We can't deny that one, but it's doable. Father. Just a little bit more, here again, they're a little bit more specific, but they're all centered around that same theme around raising the money, the cost of it, where are we going to get the money, where's the money going to come from, those kinds of questions. One of the questions as I asked through the process was who should be the leadership? And the names that are on here now, for you that participated with me face-to-face, I didn't provide you a parish roster. There was no book. There was no list of names. You all, as you remember, had to just come up with names of fellow parishioners you thought would be good. So if your name's up here, good. If your name's not, don't worry about that either. That's not a one way or the other. These were the ones that people saw in various ways in various leadership positions, or felt that because of other things they have done or known about them that they would be strong potential candidates. So these were names that were suggested to be on the Capital Campaign Committee. After I asked that question, after you volunteered some people you thought would be good, I then came back and asked you who you thought should be on it, or I'm sorry, if you would be willing to be a part of the campaign effort. And 82% of the participants said yes. Yes, we believe in this project. We want this project to happen. We are willing to volunteer in some capacity, either leadership or supportive role, to help us raise this money and to get back into our church. So that was great. We've got 76 people already that have committed to volunteer in some capacity to help fundraise. So that's why I say I think I've got the fun job. I asked a very specific question: if the campaign goes forward, would you consider a gift above and beyond your ordinary giving? So we know we need the ordinary giving that keeps the parish open, keeps the schools open, keeps your missions going that you provide to the community, but we need that extraordinary gift to give above and beyond your annual giving and tithing to make the campaign happen. And 99% of the people said yes, they would, or they would at least consider making a gift to the campaign when asked. And here again, that's an extremely high number. Normally I'm up high, but I'm not normally that high on that. And that's here again, strong commitment from you all as a parish and the belief in what's going to happen. To kind of get an idea of how much money we could raise, then I asked the question of what level or how much might you consider. Some of you had put some thought into it. Some of you hadn't really thought about it. Some of you were still trying to figure out what your financial support and commitment might be. Most of the gift levels came in level 2 and 3, which is that $20,000 to $75,000 range and the $2,500 to $15,000 range. So clearly we were going to have to try to get some more up into the level 1 to really get the project funded and paid for, so that there's less debt and less other financial worries once the project is completed, and that we can pay these guys for doing the good work they're going to do. As I say, we will continue to work on that. We know that from previous capital campaigns, as we go through the campaign and we do more sessions like this where you learn more and know more, and you've got a little bit better handle and understanding of what's expected of you on that side, we know we can usually raise some of the sights on that. But we were pleased with what we heard at this point. One of the questions, because of the great transfer of wealth that's happening in our country right now, there's $76 trillion that's going from one generation to the next over the next 30 years. A lot of people are starting to figure out that estate planning and putting some of their charitable causes back into their estate plans is one way to help the future of the causes that they supported while they were alive. So I always like to ask that question, have you or would you consider putting the parish in your estate plans going forward? 65% said yes, that they would think about it, they would consider it, or they already have put the parish in their estate plans. It's a great way to help the parish down the road. If this, you never know what's going to happen with parish expenses and costs and with the school. It's always good to have an idea of are people, or would they think about, or at least consider doing something for their parish. As we go forward in the campaign, we wanted to know how best to communicate and get the word out to you about what's going on as they go forward with the renovation and the repair work. How do we keep you all engaged and updated on what's going on? One of the things I heard during the study was that you all didn't feel like you had enough information, that you weren't kept informed, that you wanted more information. And I understand from the process that there were so many uncertainties, it was hard to get the information out, because it was changing so much depending on who they talked to and kind of what was going on and what they were hearing. But as we go forward in the campaign, that communication will become very key. So we wanted to know how best to reach out to you all and to make that happen. So bulletin, was the best. That's our best. That'll be our primary. But we'll also be using the email and flock notes. We'll also be using social media and some of the other ones as well. We probably won't rely on Father to do it entirely by himself. He'll do a lot from the pulpit, but we'll do other ways too, just to keep it coming, all right? I always like to find out what parishioners, what they would like to see their parish doing. A lot of us visit other parishes, either through our travels or visiting or just for whatever reason, and they always have some great ideas at other parishes, so I always like to ask that question. Here again, it helps the parish leadership, kind of gives them some ideas for future planning and future programming. But the big thing everybody wants, and it's coming back to that social and that wanting to be with your parish family and your parish community is really, as I look at this, it's bring parishioners back to church. Let's get people coming back. Let's not have them staying at home on the couch streaming. We all know this isn't the best environment for church, but it's still church, and it still is your all's place to be for a while. But what can we do to bring people back? They want enhanced music, bring back Bible studies, social activities, make people feel more welcome and wanting to come back, perpetual adoration. Biscuits and gravy, I do think those must be pretty phenomenal, just from what I hear. I'm kind of anxious to come down and try those myself, to be honest. And the couple said, we do a lot at St. Pat's already. We don't need to add things. We just need to do what we do and do a little bit better. So just some ideas there. The final question is, what other advice, comments, words of wisdom do you have for the parish leadership going forward? And the big one was prayer. Keep praying, and let's pray for this. Let's make it happen. Communication came up very high. Keep the church, whatever we have to do, let's repair it. Let's keep it up there. A few of them, and I didn't pay them either, said glad they hired consultants. So that's good that they brought us in, I guess. But it all really comes down to prayer and communication and keeping us informed, keeping you all informed so everybody knows what's going on, when, where, and how we go forward with this. Just a little bit more there. Here again, it's all centering around, what are they doing, what's the project, what's the progress, where are they at, how do we communicate, where do we stay. A lot of people said, you know, we're concerned about the building itself, and I think the guys did a great job on talking about that. So just a real quick summary, 74% were very well informed or informed. 100% of the parish that participated felt it was very important. The big concerns were cost, funding, debt, communications, and declining membership. And those are things we can keep aware of as we go forward. And I know the leadership has been doing that these last 18 months, but we'll continue to monitor that. Effect on the school was an important one. They want to make sure that the school is not damaged or harmed or financially hurt in any way as we go forward with the campaign and with the project, and that is part of our campaign message as well. Strengths of the parish were school, father, basically the people, and the strong faith, the strong Catholic beliefs that we have here. We have 76 people that I can start talking to and recruiting and getting job assignments out for them, so that's exciting. We have 99% of the participants said that they would consider or have or will consider. And that future of your parish was 65% saying that they're interested in learning more about state planning and making that planned gift in their estate is very exciting for the future of St. Patrick's. So from my results and from my professional experience, I believe we can raise through the capital campaign at a minimum 1.75 mil upwards to 2.25 mil. And that will be a pledge payout over a 3-year. We found 3 years to be the ideal pledge to have pledges paid out. A lot of people will make a one-time gift. Some will, may make do theirs over 2 years, but we found 3 to be that sweet point there. My recommendations and my firm's recommendations going forward were to go forward with the capital campaign. We know we've got the support, we know we've got the interest, we've got the passion. We may or may not be able to raise all of the money for it, but we can get a big chunk of it down and out of the way. With a lot of prayer and with a lot of participation and a lot of communication, we hope we can do better than my suggested amounts, and that's what we'll be striving for, is to make mine be low, and hopefully we can go over the top amount. But I feel comfortable we can at least get there. We'll recruit a strong campaign committee, and Father's been working on that, so we will announce the campaign committee today. And we encourage, and we'll have a capital campaign prayer. Father, I thought your opening prayer today had some pieces to it that will make a great capital campaign, so I'm glad we have that on tape. We can go back and catch some of that. But we will have a lot of prayer. We'll have a campaign prayer that we'll be using throughout the campaign, so that we can all come back together and not meet here in the future, but you guys will be over across the parking lot here soon, hopefully. Go ahead. There we go. Next steps, so the campaign feasibility report was presented to your leadership. They decided to go forward with a capital campaign. So the next step at that point was to get the bishop's approval. And part of the campaign process and this whole process has been many trips back and forth to Wichita getting the bishop's approval on different steps as they go, and the construction renovation process, I'm sure, does the same thing all the way through their process as well. So Father said we do have the bishop's approval, so we can go forward. We have the campaign committee. They'll continue to work on the project. The capital campaign and the renovation reconstruction will be going on at the same time, so we're not going to be losing any ground on that one. Here again, that's not normally done, but because of the nature of this particular project, we're going to be doing both of them simultaneously out of need. We will continue with communication and education and involving you all so that you all can be a part of the fundraising process. Whether you volunteered or not, you'll have more opportunities to do that. And as I mentioned, we'll continue to pray for the parish, the campaign, and the renovation project going forward. Any questions from anybody on the capital campaign or the process? We hope to be in full campaign mode here very quickly. We'll be calling a meeting for the capital campaign, and we hope to know where we're at as far as the fundraising fairly well completed by Memorial Day weekend. So we're going to be running a pretty tight timeline, but we hope to be able to have the money raised and committed with your pledges by Memorial Day weekend, and then the pledges can roll in those 2 to 3 years after that point in time. Okay?
Yes, when we had the meetings with you individually at the Friends Place,
Mhm.
you mentioned that the diocese was going to take 10% of the funds that we raised for this project right off the top.
Yes.
So if the project costs 4.3 million, then we have to raise 4.7 or so?
Correct. Yeah, I've got a question back here.
My first question was, Dr. Yarborough asked about the diocese help on a project and the tithe. The second one is part of the scope of your services is grants such as maybe or other sources of grants.
Sure. We will be looking at grant opportunities for this project. I will say that for church projects, grants are limited. Maybe Foundation does not do churches. I've worked with the Maybe Foundation on a lot of projects, and this is not one they typically do, unfortunately. But we will be looking at some other grant opportunities. There are a few foundations out there, and I don't know if this one will qualify because of the timeline on it. There are some foundations out there that do renovations of some churches, depending, but we'll have to just check in to see and see if that's an opportunity for us.
As the pledge money comes in, it will be recorded on our tithing papers of the office. Okay. I have a family member who's going to pledge or has pledged. Will that be a separate sheet for them to let the office know who it is?
Repeat your
I see.
question.
I sent it out to my family, and one family member, they're pledging an amount. Will that be kept? Will that? How do I put it? How will it be kept track of?
Yeah, we will be keeping track of all the, not only people's, normal tithe, but we'll also have another way of tracking what people are getting for the capital campaign, whether they're a parishioner or
Okay.
not a parishioner. So
All right.
we'll track where all money or donations coming from.
Thank you.
Yeah. So all donations will be tracked specifically to the capital campaign, and there will be a ledger sheet on that alone, whether you're a parishioner or not a parishioner. Yeah. And we do, if you have others outside of the parish that you think may or may be interested, you can do like he did and let them know the campaign's getting to start up, and if they, former parishioners or whatever that may have an interest in supporting the effort, you are certainly welcome to send them to the website and encourage them to contact the parish and to make a gift or a pledge if you want to. We're not going to exclude any outside parishioner dollars, for darn sure. We can't actively go after them as a parish, but we can accept them if they come to us. Do you have a question? You have a question? Yeah.
You said the capital campaign was between 1.75 and 2.25 million, and I hadn't heard what the projected cost was. And the second part of the question was, how would the remaining balance be financed?
I'll let Father or Dollinger handle the cost of the project, because I don't know that I could honestly answer that one as well. I have a ballpark, but you guys have better numbers. The rest of it, I'm going to guess, will be financed through the diocese in a fashion, which is, they've done this with other parishes that have been in building or renovation, reconstruction projects. So they are the source that we would go to first for financing.
So first, the cost amount. The cost amount we've been working with right now has been 4.3, and that's a very conservative, worst case type of scenario number. I know our hope is, and Dollinger's hope is, as we move forward with this, we'll be able to drive that price down and actually come in less. One thing I do want to mention too, and Betty can correct me if I'm wrong on this. The refinery is the 1.75 to the 2.25. That's taking consideration what she believes we can raise within the parish among the parishioners here. So that's not including, such as you mentioned, Tony, outside donations from former parishioners or former alumni who may be supporting us too. So, don't let that number, discourage you. I also, there's a grant foundation, the Sunderland Foundation, if I'm right, and they do a lot of work in helping projects. They have helped out in Southeast Kansas, I do believe. They maybe gave a donation to St. Patrick's in Chanute.
Yes, they did when I did that campaign.
They did
Yeah.
that campaign. So we are looking at those different sources of revenue, and I'm working on those. And I do want to talk to Dr. Arnold's point about the diocese and the 10%. As we know, we are a stewardship diocese, and just as we ask that our parishioners give 10% tithe to the parish in a sense is seen as a person, and the parish tithes on a monthly basis to the diocese. And yes, it is correct that when it comes to building projects, capital campaigns, and such like that, the diocese still does ask for 10%. That being said, however, there are some cases in certain circumstances on building projects that the diocese will make a gift or a donation. The difference between our project and building a new church is that this is not something that we simply hope to have someday, but this is a need. In the diocese, I have been talking to them, and they are speaking of making a gift to our parish. So let's not point fingers to the diocese or speak that. And they are aware of our need and our concern, or our need, and they are concerned, and they are willing to help us out. So they will be something working with us rather than against us as we go through this.
And that gift from the diocese would be above what my number was. So that gift also was one of those not included in my number. Okay? All right. Other questions? Comments? All right. Guys, thank you. If you have any questions, comments, please don't hesitate. If you want to get a hold of me afterwards, I encourage that. If you've got questions that you don't feel comfortable asking in public, be glad to do that with you. I'm here to work with you and to be a part of this and to make this happen for you. Thank you.